Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I shouldn't even say channel because I haven't updated this in like 3 or 4 years. I have been doing nothing with this channel. However, here I am. My name is Tara and I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I also have POTS, Hashimoto's, PCOS, seizures, look, a lot of stuff. But today we're going to focus on the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and talk a little bit about how I got diagnosed. That is probably my #1 question. When I meet people, a lot of times it's in a medical setting, and sometimes it's a nurse or a doctor or a tech, and they have questions about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. For instance, recently I got an echocardiogram. The tech, when he heard I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, was sharing with me his family history and that he himself had looked into Ehlers-Danlos syndrome as a diagnosis for him and his father. His grandfather had recently died of, I think, his aorta tour, something along those lines, that led him to look into this as a possible diagnosis. Now, it's kind of tricky because I only had as long as it took for my echocardiogram to share with him and for him to think of questions and for us to go back and forth. I can't give him my phone number or my Facebook, and I don't know if it's legal or not. I don't know all the intricacies of HIPAA, but I do know that more often than not, in the encounters that I've had, these people who work in the medical field are not really willing to contact you outside of a medical setting as like a personal. So I didn't have an active YouTube to share with him for him to contact me, and I didn't have like a Facebook page that was separate from my personal Facebook page. In fact, there's a story about one of them contacting me on my personal Facebook page that I will save for another day. So I thought I need to get my YouTube up and running so I can share that with people, and I think I'm going to make a Facebook page that is totally separate, because you would not believe, and y'all, I live in Mississippi. There's not even a geneticist here that I know of that can diagnose Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, especially not in an adult. And so the fact that I've had so many encounters here in small town USA just shows that it's time. It's time for me to share my story, and it's time for me to get something running that now that I'm feeling better and now that my health is better, that I can help those just like I was helped when I was first seeking a diagnosis. So here we go. How I got diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Now, the start of my story really was when I was in my early 20s, late teens, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't even have it on the radar. I had danced my whole life, and I had really gotten serious about it in high school, and it was a real blessing because it kept my muscles strong. They really kind of focused on having a strong core and like some of these like muscles that are really important for stabilization, let's say. So I had pain issues, fatigue issues, little things like that, but nothing was a huge red flag until I stopped dancing, and I started having symptoms. So probably from 17 to 22, 23, I was constantly being tested for why is this young girl who seems healthy, has a healthy weight, has a healthy lifestyle. I mean, besides partying on the weekends, but I didn't tell them that, and everybody else did too, so sorry, Lord. Anyways, so they couldn't figure it out. The only thing they could figure out was she has fibromyalgia. Pardon me. If you have POTS, you know. I have to drink like 2 or 3 of these a day. And the bad part of it is, sorry, this is chasing a rabbit. The bad part of it is that once you get started, once you have done this for several days, several weeks, your body like needs it. It's not like you can go back. Anyways, so the diagnosis that was often given to me was fibromyalgia. Now, there are some doctors out there who really did try. I went to a rheumatologist. One was good, one was horrendous, who told me it was all in my head. And they did all kinds of like rheumatoid arthritis, testing like that. When I was 23, I believe I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, so they thought maybe that was a huge contribution to my joint pain, so that would resolve itself. It did not, so back into the fibromyalgia diagnosis. And you know, for a while I got a job I loved and I just forgot about it. Now, looking back, I was not a normal functioning human being. Like, there is, for every social outing, for every I worked 12-hour shifts. For every weekend I worked 3 12-hour shifts. I really took a hard beating on my body. I would have to lay in bed for 2 days and kind of try to get over it, you know, exhausting it that much. But still, doctors had no idea what was going on. Ehlers-Danlos was not even remotely on the radar until I think I was 20. It might have been later, in maybe in 23 or 24. Y'all, my brain is not as good as it used to be. Anyways, so I was probably around that age, and I woke up. I actually woke myself up hysterically crying, and my shoulder was dislocated. I had dislocated my shoulder in my sleep, and the way it had gone back in had torn a nerve, so I had like, my hand was something like this. I called it my dinosaur hand, and so I couldn't get it back, and it was very painful. So we go to the ER. By the time we get to the ER, my shoulder has resolved itself, which they thought it was weird, but they decided, you know, they believed me that, you know, it's like half and half. Are they gonna believe you or are they not? We don't know. We still don't know. And I got a diagnosis. Anyways, he believed me, so he gave me some muscle relaxers to kind of calm it down, and he sent me on my way to a physical therapist. Now, this is where my life changed, and I can't even remember her name. I wish I knew where she was. I just want to hug her. I want to send her a birthday card. I want to send her flowers every year on my Ehlers-Danlos diagnosis anniversary, because I don't know what would have happened had I not met her, and it is by the grace of God. I'm so thankful, because this physical therapist who was trying to work with my shoulder and rehabilitate it, without really explaining why, had said, I'd like to work on some other things with you. I was like, oh, that's fine, whatever, you know, do whatever you want to do. And so it was probably about 2 weeks of her trying to check my balance and my flexibility and all kinds of stuff. And, you know, here I am, I don't care, whatever. And she said to me, she said, I've encountered connective tissue disorders before when I was a student, and I've seen them, and I know that there's something wrong with your collagen connective tissue. I don't know what it is. I'm not qualified to put a name on it, but there is something wrong. And you're hypermobile. All your joints are hypermobile. They're not supposed to be this hypermobile. And she also told me that I should probably stop doing my party tricks, which my party trick was I could pop my hip in and out, which honestly, until that point, I had attributed a lot of things to dance, being a dancer, being flexible. And she said, you know, you've been out of dance for a while. This is not normal. This is outside of I'm just flexible because I danced. Your body and your joints are not supposed to be doing what they're doing. So I didn't know how to take that. I didn't even know that this could be part of drink break. I didn't even know that this could be part of the pain in Ehlers-Danlos. I didn't understand any of this at the time, and when I went to research it, I couldn't really figure out or write in the right thing because she never told me Ehlers-Danlos specifically. So I just took what she said, and it was probably 2 years later. So I went to her when I was probably about 24 by then, because I'd had a birthday. So I probably dislocated at 23, went to her at 24, and it was 2 days after my 26th birthday that I finally had decided that my body was going kaput and things were dislocating that shouldn't be. My physical therapist by that point had noted ribs, noted my other shoulder, and other things that were just really playing out. We had decided it was time. So I had to go out of state. And I say had to, I guess I could have, but at the time, my best bet and what I felt most comfortable with was going to the University of Alabama, Birmingham, who had a connective tissue genetic department that was, you know, specific to that. So when we get there, we go through everything. Now, this is where I give people advice, because you may need it, you may not, but I really do encourage this because I do believe that this is helpful in me getting diagnosed, and not only me getting diagnosed, but knowing what to do with the diagnosis. So what I had done in probably the 6 months before I made my way to the University of Alabama, Birmingham, shout out Dr. Los, thank you for the diagnosis. So before I had gone there, I had kind of gone back through notes, mainly notes, not so much medical records. I had been with the same physical therapy clinic since my shoulder dislocation, and I had even had tenure, or probably about 6 to 8 years before that, I had had some physical therapy for my lower back. So I had years of their notes on my body. So basically what I went through and did is I got what I had written about, questions that I had, because if you're like me and you're a note taker or a list maker, then I had, okay, so now you do iPhone notes, but I mean, y'all, I was born in 88, okay? I graduated high school in 2006. So before iPhone notes, we had emails. And what I would do is I would save it as a draft and I would add to it. And then I would print it out and I would take it to my doctor. So I went through all of those and I made a comprehensive list. The first thing that I did is I made a timeline of this is what happened here and then what happened here. Like, I made it from birth to then. And they're going to ask you those questions too in your geneticist office. My mom went, they asked her pregnancy, they asked how my birth was, all these my childhood questions that I probably could not have answered myself. But, you know, if you can't answer them, that's okay too. But I made a list, a timeline. Then from that timeline, I made a list of all the symptoms that were, I mean, I didn't write that I stubbed a toe when I was 8, but I did write that I had frequent UTIs when I was a young child. And then when I was older, I had issues with UTIs. I wrote that down. And I wrote down a list of all my symptoms. So I had the timeline with symptoms and diagnoses, and I went to the doctor for this and why, basically my life story and medical. I had a list of all the symptoms that I had experienced, and then I had a list of diagnoses. I can't speak. Anyways, you know what I mean. So I had a list of everything I had been diagnosed with up until that point, and I took it in to my appointment with my geneticist. Now, some people will want to do this, some people won't, but for me it was extremely important. The reason why is because the timeline was all taken care of by, I don't know exactly what their title is, but it's someone who comes in and does genetic counseling maybe. But there was a girl that came in before my geneticist did and got my whole family history. So it was important that I had that sheet, which I did not know would happen before I went there. So it's just lucky that I had it. And then when my geneticist finally came, he took a look at all my, this was after he diagnosed me with Ehlers Danlos. To him, like, it's so weird because you go to all these doctors and they look at you like, I don't know what you are. I don't even have the scope of understanding to know what you are. And then you go to somebody who's a geneticist who's diagnosed and seen Ehlers Danlos all the time, and he looks at you like, oh yeah, I know what you are. Why wouldn't you be that? It makes total sense. Everything in your whole life, everything that you are, everything that you've gone through, everything makes total sense. Of course you have Ehlers Danlos. What else would you have? And I'm just like, dude, not everybody thinks like you. Thank you, but you know, it's kind of like, it takes a minute, you know, it takes a minute. So I got him to look at all my symptoms, and I don't know if everybody would do this, but he went through and said, yes, no, like, this has nothing to do with Ehlers Danlos, this does. And at the end of it, after he saw that list, he said, he gave me a list of specialists based on my symptoms that would be probably secondary to Ehlers Danlos. He gave me that list, and he said, I want you to go to cardiology first, and then like something, I forget what else it was, but he prioritized cardiology for me to get diagnosed with POTS. That was also the first time I'd ever heard of POTS, was when he said it. And he was just kind of a little bit ahead of his time, because now of course we hear POTS like all the time in the Ehlers Danlos community. Or maybe it's just one of those things where you buy a white Honda and all of a sudden everybody drives a white Honda. Maybe it's just that. But until he said POTS, I didn't even know what it was. So it was helpful for me to have that list. As far as getting diagnosed with whatever you struggle with, if there's other things, I really stand by what I've said about making a list of your symptoms and continuing that list as things go on and see what kind of fits in there, and then bringing it to a doctor. I also strongly believe that if your doctor is not serving you, to either move on or do your own research and get them to do what you want them to do, which I did, because my doctor was not serving me. He didn't know what to do with me. And there's a point where doctors will either kind of kick you out the door or almost seem frustrated by your very presence, and it's just because they don't know what to do with you. So I just asked him to send me to a geneticist, and he did. So I just had him do what I wanted him to do. And then I got another doctor, but that's okay. So I'm going to end it here, because this is really my story of how I got diagnosed and what I thought was important and was not important. And I'm going to continue this series on where I share things that mainly in the beginning, I'm going to talk about how I share what I talk about with people who have come up to me, who have contacted me. It's amazing. People will like give my number to random people and they'll come talk to me. Questions that they ask me, and things that I think they need to know. So I'm going to continue this. This is by no means the only video. I'm actually going to make a channel now. I promise. Hold me to it. You've seen it. You've heard it. I said I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to continue on with this. And I'm going to make a Facebook page too. So I'll link that below when I make it. because I'll probably post this before I make it. Y'all, I'm trying, okay? I'm trying, I really am. But sometimes, you know, life happens. Anyways, so thank y'all for watching. Thank you for stopping by. And I look forward to making a little community on here of chronic illness warriors and other people too. Come one, come all. Bye guys.